All right, so let's get started. Today we're going to talk about proposals, and we've had another mishap with Trish today. She was going to be joining us, and she had all hell break loose on her again today. So she's not jumping on the call. Hopefully, a couple other people jump in. If they don't, that's all good. I think we can kind of keep ourselves amused.
It's a quality group right here. I'm okay with this.
Yeah. I think we had some really good sort of input last week, and it was awesome. So yeah,
I've got to say, ladies, I do a lot of these calls, and there's a lot of blokes and a lot of guys, and they tend to be loud and talk a lot and stuff. And I know I'm probably doing it too, but it is really cool being on a call and actually. This is going to sound so bad, but you guys having the opportunity to talk because you do have great insight. And I really don't like when I feel like a conversation is very masculine driven. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed the last talk, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this one too.
I mean, as much as I like to just be affirmed that everything is right, it's nice to hear other people's opinions. But anyway, yeah. So today the topic was really going to be on proposals, and I don't know if people want to break down sort of how they do stuff and how they sort of work. It is obviously with something like proposals, it is how can I sort of say it's sort of personal to everyone, and some of the advice and some of the tips and some of the things we all talk about today, they're not going to work for everyone, and that's totally cool. But I'm going to try and start off with something that I think is one of those things that is sort of general that I think most people could sort of take on board. And that really is to sort of reframe their thought process around a proposal and stop seeing it as like a sales tool and start to see the whole sort of conversation that you have with someone is really that sales and the proposal all combined. And then the actual proposal that we always think about, this little document, which we call the proposal, is really just a confirmation of the stuff that we're meant to be agreeing to. So I think if that's a general thing, and I think if a lot of people started to do that, they'd be saving time, they'd be able to sort of focus on the right things at the right time. So that's kind of where I wanted to sort of start off with that. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts or what they sort of think around that.
Can I add one thought?
Yeah.
I don't use proposals. Meeting over.
Well, that's great. So...
No, I think you know me enough by now, Corey, to know that you and I are pretty much on the same page, at least partly on this, because we tend to lean towards a more fluid process where, some people just talk to a client, think they know what the client needs. They send them this big document, and then they don't hear back from the client. So then they try to send the magic email, and, that's the process. And I think that my process is almost exactly the opposite of that. It's a very fluid process, much like yours.
Yeah. So for anyone that sort of, if they're watching this on the replay or they don't know, I guess how me and Sonia would work, it's really having a conversation. I'm in that proposal. I guess it's in that sales process, and Nick's obviously a bit of a sales person here. But in that sales process for me is when I'm starting to, no, Leanne's like, nah. But yeah, in that sales process is kind of when I'm trying to essentially get a yes from a client to sort of see that we're on the same page, that we're talking about the same sort of things, that, if they need help with this problem for this reason, if we can do this for this sort of amount of money in this sort of time frame, are we on the same page? And if they're saying yes, then that's the only reason that I'm going to do a proposal. And that proposal isn't like, some big document. It really is essentially a page saying, hey, these are the things we agreed to. Are you cool? It's just kind of as complicated as I get with that. But yeah, I don't know. Anyone else got to tackle it differently?
Okay. Yeah. So it's actually a good topic, because I'm kind of at this, I want to change my proposal process. So what I do, and what I've always done, is same as you, I get agreement in the meeting. So I will tell them the price, I'll tell them what I'm going to do, and they'll say yes or no. And if they say yes, then I'll send a proposal. Still don't always get 100% signing. But when I don't mess around, I'm usually sitting on about 90% acceptance rate on proposals, which is great. The only time it fails is when I don't follow my process. Note to everyone, follow your process all the time. The problem is, in my previous business, when I was working for someone else, so it wasn't my business, but I was the main guy. I took their proposal process away and I replaced it with a 2-page agreement. So I will do the same thing and I'll just send a 2-page agreement. One page was, here's what we're going to do. And the other page was terms and conditions, and they'll sign off. It was really easy. It'll take me about 15 minutes to turn that, to get that out. At the moment, I'm not doing that. I'm still doing technically a proposal. And I have 2 views on how I should do this. Like, view number 1 is I've already agreed to everything with them. All I need to really do is the same thing as before. 2-page, basically a contract. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how it's going to work. Here's what you sign off on. The other side of it is sometimes especially with some of the larger places, like, they do like the proposal. They like to read through it. I see them read through, this is, the problem you're solving for me. And so the way I kind of approach it is, here's the story, it's a story. So here's what we discussed. Like, here's the situation you're in. Here's who you are. Here's the problem you're facing. Here's what we need to do to make that problem go away, or to fix the problem. Here's what I'm going to do as part of that. Here's how much it's going to cost you, and here's the terms and conditions to sign. And it's okay, and I think it works, but I'm just wondering, do I need to go that far? Not that I know I don't need to, but is it worth going that far? And also, should I take that even a step further? Because in a previous business, when I wasn't doing web stuff, when I was working for someone else and we actually hired a web agency, literally we went to a couple different places and we judged based on the proposal, and it wasn't a price thing. It was, one of the proposals had a lot of detail around stuff like that, the problem, what they were going to do. They had a site map. They had all these different things in there. And these guys went to a lot of effort. They really seemed to understand, versus the other guy who did a proposal for a little bit less, but it was just fairly loose. And it was like, we don't understand what's going to happen with this guy, but we do understand what's going to happen with these other people. And then we signed. And I'm wondering how much, how much of it is how people view things, and how much of it is me just going, this is how I would work and this is what I should do. So now I'm like.
So my thoughts on that, and my initial sort of instinct on that sort of thing was how much presumption is being made there with those people that are providing site maps and stuff like that. Has a discovery been done? And yes, you might get it right and you might woo some clients by having all of this information in there. But like I said, how much of it is presumption, and how much of it are we sort of missing the sort of whole point of what, the sort of discovery process, and are we sort of jumping ahead? And also the amount of time, do you really want to invest? I don't know, if someone's done amazing stuff, they've done site maps and they've done wireframes and they've
So what I do as part of my sales meeting is I do run through kind of the core things that they need as part of it, and I put that into the proposal. Like, you need a homepage and it needs these sections. Here's the objective of the homepage. Like, it's a sales page, it's a lead gen page, it's an institutional page. Same thing as anything else that needs to be on there. Generally, I won't go into as much detail about things like additional pages. Like, I won't say, oh, you need an about page with this on there. Like, just a core, one paragraph about what it's about. So I'm already kind of doing an element of that anyway. Mm-hmm. But it's like, do I even need to? And I know I probably don't. And I'm wondering, should I just scrap it and go back to doing a simple 2-pager? And I think I probably can. I don't really need to go that far, but I do want the Jonathan Stark, his little proposal template. And it's all about here's the problem and here's the outcome that we're going to focus on. And he doesn't go into too much detail about the specifics. And I'm wondering whether to do the same thing, because I hate pointing to a proposal or to a contract as to back me up. Hate it. If the first thing is oh, well, the proposal says this, and when you're in an argument, that's a big problem. It needs to be kind of the last resort. So I'm wondering, how much should I put in there from the get-go, saying, hey, here's how it works very clearly. So, we have it really clear and there's no ambiguity later. So I don't know.
Because I can see this conversation sort of going over naturally into discovery sort of conversations pretty quickly. And I guess it sort of comes down to how and when you're running that discovery, and how how much. For me, it's not in that pre-sales part of the process. We're either doing discovery afterwards when they're on board, or we're doing a discovery before, a paid discovery before a project starts. And if it's the latter, if there's a proper paid discovery done, then that's when I'm going to document stuff, and they know. But then I'm essentially providing them something that they can take away and use with someone else. And if they don't want to work with me, they can go away and I don't know, take that discovery. There should be something of value in there too as well. It's not just like, we are heading down the discovery path. But I have this thing with discovery that gets thrown around. And I think what people mean when they use the word discovery, especially paid discovery, is all they mean is the stuff they're trying to find out that the client knows. And to me, that's not discovery.
Scoping it out. They're talking about scoping it out.
That's exactly. That's project scope.
Yeah.
And really a discovery should work the other way, where you're uncovering stuff that the client doesn't know. And they're like going, oh my God, aha, now I get it. That's a discovery to me, right? That's when you're doing I guess like a workshop or something that is deeper, and then they realize the impact of what you do or why we're doing it. Anyway, I don't know. I think that sounds like, I think you could go either way there, Nick, and it does depend on what process you want to take, But I don't sort of believe in the idea that clients do look at that extra stuff.
That's where I'm like, okay, is that? So I believe the same thing, right? But then I do see them actually go through and read it on the proposal software. So Better Proposals tracks how long they're spending on each page. So I'm like, is it just me that going, this is how I would buy? Like, I wouldn't look too much into it. Am I projecting my approach to things to clients that are out there? Because I could be wrong. So that's where it's like, I think I am leaning towards cutting it down though. And just making it really, really simple, mostly because, you know what, I've always approached business by doing things the way I want them to be done. Like, I will act the way I would like other people to act towards me. So why would I do something that goes against what I would want to get as a potential buyer?
Yeah.
So
I mean, my stats on the proposal software are almost the opposite, that people basically go straight to the pricing page. They look at it. That's the one that they keep going back to. They kind of browse the other stuff. But I think sometimes what they're doing with that is they go from the price to the specs, to the price to the specs, to the price to the specs, and they're kind of comparing you to someone else. Whereas if you kind of keep all of that stuff out, like often, I don't know what those answers are yet. Like, we're not at that stage. I'm not going to write all that down. Are we at that point yet? No. We've agreed that we're going to try and fix these problems within this scope of money, and how we sort of get there becomes a second conversation. But I don't know. That's how I work.
I kind of agree with that, and I think it also depends on who your client is. I guess for me, I'm still kind of with the small to medium businesses, not a lot of the bigger businesses, and I feel like when it's the smaller businesses, they actually don't really know what you do. They just know that they need all these things. So I've found with the proposal, I don't always send a proposal, but when I do, I just brought it up in front of me to remind me what's on it. But it's basically general, like standard inclusions, specific inclusions for their site that's a little bit different. So it might be like, instead of the standard pages, we have 10 pages and we need this functionality and we need this to happen. And then I have just got like a few of the main questions people always have. How long is it going to take? Do I have the chance to give feedback? What do I have to give you? Like, what content in general? Not everything, but like in general, you're going to have to give me images. You're going to have to give me logo. You're going to have to give me content. I'll take care of the Google and search engine side. So yes, that's another question answered. And then price. And then I've got key assumptions, which I think is helpful. So basically you'll provide all of this for us to get going. And also the timeline is dependent on you. So I think that one is a helpful one. But mine's just, I've got Dubsado. So mine is all set up so that it's proposal, and then they can see contract, and then they can see invoice. And that invoice actually follows through between all of them. It's got the scope and it's got the price and it's got everything.
Yep.
But I'm still tweaking that. So I'm really interested to hear what everybody says. But I think from my perspective with the small clients, they have no idea. They want to know price. They want to know the answers to the main questions, because they're always usually a bit unsure and a bit nervous about handing over what to them is a lot of money. And
So,
I find quite a few people are quite emotional with their website. They're very attached because they see it as an extension of them. I think perhaps like I work a lot with beauty and wellness and health and well-being, so generally people are more kind of in touch anyway, but I've been quite surprised with just how attached and how much emotion there is with these websites. So I feel like for my clients, not overwhelming them is the key to making them feel comfortable. But it's a hard balance sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I really like the key assumptions. I try to cover that stuff, and I have some of the things that you've sort of talked about as well outlined, like timeframes. And in timeframes, they're just basically dot points, and all of this stuff anything that I have is very templatey, but it'll essentially say that it has time frame for me and a time frame allowance for, say, feedback, and then you can kind of hold each other accountable for that stuff. So I have similar assumptions, but I like that idea of having some key assumptions sort of outlined. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was in the template and I liked it, so I just expanded on it a little bit, but made it a heading. So
yeah,
just before the end, I think
definitely something that like Corey, I think I touch on a bit, but I don't really specify enough, and I think that's a really good move. I guess so when I look at my stats generally, I've just like pasted one of the recent ones, and this is one that went ahead. Now these are, I'm generally not always working with people who are overly emotionally attached to design. They are more focused on, what's going to happen and how I can help their business. The sites are almost always over 10K. Very rare to be under. Like sometimes it might be 8 or something, 6 if it's like a friend of a friend type thing where it's like I know I have to do something special for them or whatever, and it's going to be very simple, but very rare. I don't like doing that. They do look at the stuff I give them, which is the only thing that gives me pause. It's like, they're spending like 5 minutes looking at the solution, 3 minutes on timeline, like how long this is going to take. And they're spending like 3 minutes reading over the investment. And these aren't like excessively long pages either. So it's like they're really reading and rereading. I had a look at another one as well. That was a similar thing. They were like over a minute on objectives. So where was it? What was their first read through? Yeah, so 2 minutes on solution, a minute and a half on timeline, a minute and a half on investment, 5 minutes on the agreement page, 2 minutes to actually sign. So it's like they do look at it, and that's where I'm like, should I just focus on making it a bit more templated, and just like making it so it's easier for me to fill out, because I'm spending like probably anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes on a proposal, which I feel like is way too long. I really should be just copy pasting something into a spot about what I'm doing, maybe doing a little bit of a tweak and getting it out in 15 minutes if I can. So maybe I should focus a bit more on making it like actually go the other way, and instead of making it shorter, make it like even more polished. And I don't know. This is based on their behavior. So that was why I'm like always, what do I do?
I think, can I interject?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so when I said that my process is fluid, one of the things that I do differently than maybe the average web designer is I try to make the client do as much work as possible, as early as possible. When I have my first conversation with them, I try to ask very intelligent questions, and there's a real art to questions. That is, a question like, what does your business do, is definitely the wrong question. A question like, how much does a truck roll cost you? And let's break that down, is probably a very intelligent question if you're talking to a plumber, right? Because the minute they jump in their truck and drive somewhere, even if it's just for an estimate, that costs them money. So that's an intelligent question. But I open up a whiteboard normally a Google Doc, for the first conversation. And I try to get them to type as much as possible. I ask questions and get them to type down bullet points. Now, this gets them engaged. And this eventually becomes the statement of work if we decide to work together. I mean, it's the beginning of the statement of work. And that way, when I finally send them the contract, it's not like some proposal that they're going to accept or reject, because they've already invested very heavily, or we parted ways. But I like making the client do as much work as possible. It gets them invested. It makes sure that the solutions that I provide are more on target. And it also gives me an opportunity during the process to guide them in a different direction, because sometimes clients come in saying, well, I need a 5-page website and I need this form and I need this functionality. And sometimes I can tell early on they're completely wrong. I mean, I have a background, I have a minor in business, and I'm a data scientist, some of you may know. And because of that, I can do predictive analytics, and I have gut feels for, somebody tells me, I had a client once tell me that she wanted to increase her revenue by 10% a year. And I knew that she could increase it by a lot more than that, but not by what she was trying to do. In fact, in 3 years, we increased her revenue 105% per year compounded. Oh. We went from $30,000 a year to $250,000, and she was still only working 1 day a week. But I had to draw that out of her and get her to, answer the questions and put the work in. And then the contract was a slam dunk. She was at the beginning of the conversation, she was saying, well, so-and-so will do it for $1,200. And I just ignored that and moved on. And she ended up spending a lot more than that, obviously, but she made a fortune. So.
Am I the only one that's just thinking, maybe I need to get Sonia to do some work for me? Because I want that compounding 105% over the years. I want one day a week.
Everybody has skills that they can bring to the table. For me, having done predictive analytics for companies like Apple and the big banks and the telecoms, I can kind of see into, revenue patterns in advance. I have a gut feel for that. But everybody has skills that they bring and experience that they bring to the table. I mean, if you've been working in the, personal care industry, then you have a gut feel for what they can accomplish.
Yep.
And that's, you have to figure out what your value is and leverage that, and then work with the client to make them understand what they can do. And let them, I like to let the client sell me.
100%. Yeah, I mean, with that sort of sales thing, it's like if you have to try and tell someone that you're that they want to hire you, it's a hard job. But if they do it for yourself, it's like the sale's already over. They've already sold themselves.
I spend most of the meeting talking them out of using me.
Yeah.
I actually had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. It was an initial conversation with some people, and it's a really exciting project. I'm not going to talk about it until we got the ink on the deal. But at the end of 45 minutes of conversation, actually, it wasn't even the end, but I was continuing to ask them questions, and one of them just interrupted and said, "How do we move forward on this?"
Yeah.
And I knew it was a done deal. At that point, they just wanted to stop talking and start doing business. And I love it when the client says that,
Yep. I think something that you pointed out, which I have never heard anyone do, which is basically getting the client to sit there and write the service of work. And something that I'm very careful of, very mindful of is language. And I try really hard to, and this is both within the design process that I have, but also in that sort of initial sales and proposal process, is to engage that mirroring effect where you listen carefully to the language that they use. If someone calls a customer, or you don't call them a client, or anything you can kind of grab onto the way that they talk is important. So I try to dig into that, but you're literally talking about getting to the client or the customer to write the the actual scope of the project with you. And then there's almost no proposal involved, because if they're writing that, you're like, I'm doing the stuff you said. Is that right? Yes. So that's an interesting approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool.
I really like it. I'm trying to think of implementation process for me, so it might be something I try to work towards. But yeah, I could see it potentially getting me in trouble with some of the clients because of the stuff they'll be writing, but it's all right. I can just edit. But yeah, no, that is pretty cool. Look, the more invested they are into the process, the more invested they are into working with you, obviously, the better it's going to be for you to get them on board, and the easier it becomes to get the sale. I feel like I'm quite good at the bulk of the sales process. Like, I don't want to, toot my own horn or anything, but I'm okay. I sell websites, good prices, usually more than people would normally want to pay for a website. I tend to get them decent results as well. So I feel okay about that, but yeah, there's always room to improve. I really like what I've heard. Two of the main things that have jumped out, like number one is key assumptions, bringing that in. That's great. And I really want to bring that in. Getting people to write the notes in a Google Doc. I'm still mentally, like, even when I'm on Zoom, I'm still operating on the whole being in person thing. And in person, I would always have my notepad and I'll be writing notes. And now getting them to actually write things down in person is something I never tried. So yeah, the Google Doc thing is great.
Mm.
Well, and you can still do a Google Doc on the side with Zoom. You can just split your screen and have the Zoom there and have the Google Doc on the other side. And that way you're engaging with them personally and you're getting them to write as much. And then I think, Nick, you mentioned something about worrying about the things that they might write down. And that's, of course, a valid concern. But one of my heroes when it comes to the art of selling is some dude named Socrates. And this guy had, the art of the question down pat. I mean, he could be arguing with somebody and he would start asking them questions. And before long, they would say, well, I don't want to be a Democrat. I'm going to be a Republican now. I mean, he would literally, just ask the right questions and get them to come up with the answer that he wanted them to. And, as you discover what the client really needs, either from your experience in their industry or in my case, it's analytics. As you discover that, then you can ask the right questions to guide them to the realization that you wanted them to realize.
Yeah.
That's just Socrates,
That's look, that's I used to do business coaching. So that was essentially what I would do. I would just ask people questions the whole time and then guide them to the realization. Every now and then I would have to step in with hey, here's how something works. Here's a bit of education you're missing, to kind of push them along. But most of the time it was questioning, and yeah, it works really, really well. The Socratic method of coaching, I think is what it's called, or Socratic method of selling as well. So yeah, look, I'm with you there. That was more of a joke about stuff. I know that I've got a couple of builders and they're really they like to sneak things in. So I could picture them going, putting in one of the points guarantee $1 million in revenue. But obviously I would be no, you don't do that. You're right in front of me. I can see you writing. So yeah, no, look, it's a pretty good thing, and I'm already thinking of ways I can start implementing this into my process. We'll see. I'll test it on the next meeting I have.
I think with that too, that sort of starts to get a bit of a divide here with what commitment we make within proposals to spend more time versus less time. And I think if that's a path that I was going to head down, that's seriously only paid discovery sort of stuff. I wouldn't want to be doing that. And you're that's not like
Sorry, I just want to confirm. So when you're saying paid discovery, like I'm not talking about going in depth onto a solution. I'm more, let's say most of the people that come to me, they're not looking for something like, I'm not building membership sites that often or e-commerce or anything. It's usually more like a lead gen or a positioning piece. So I will usually tell them as part of that sales meeting, like the things that you generally need for something like this. You need a homepage that does this. You need an about page for this purpose. You need a blog for this purpose. We need to do an error page. So I just kind of lay out the fundamentals of what they'll need. And then I'll say you probably have a couple of interior pages. You might have a portfolio. Stuff like that will be when I'm talking about the logistics behind the solution. Like here's what we're going to need to probably build as part of this in order to, or like what the solution actually is. I'll say, here are a couple of things that we're going to have to build as part of this in order to tick all the boxes that you need to deliver the outcome. But I don't go in depth about it. Generally, even paid discovery is something I would reserve for people who have no idea about their business. It's like, look, you don't know what you're trying to achieve. You don't know why we're talking. Either bugger off and go and spend $500 on Fiverr, or like you need to invest some time and energy and money for me to figure out what we need to try to do.
And I guess, I guess that's why I was sort of saying that with this, that the sort of suggestion that sort of Sonia's making here, or you know, the process she's outlining, to me, I'm looking at that already and going with it. There's an additional time commitment in there. If we're going to ask serious questions, we're really going to dig deep. That's not your 20-minute you know, getting someone across the line sort of sales conversation. That really is like, let's put the brakes on. What's the problem? What's the bigger problem? How are we going to try and achieve this? And that's sort of where I'm coming from with that sort of paid discovery. I really can't see that as just being like, you know, getting someone to sort of sit there and write stuff on a whiteboard in a meeting in a Google Doc. Correct me if I'm wrong too, Sonia. I'm sort of talking about a process that I've not done and you've explained, but in my head, I'm looking at that going, it sounds like, you know, it's not a 15-20 minute conversation going on here.
Sometimes it is.
Wow.
It depends. I'm pretty good at weeding out clients ahead of time. And I have a lot of tools that do that. Like I can, within a few seconds and a few clicks, track down their behavior online. And, you know, it's kind of advanced CRM kind of things.
Yep.
And I can see if they've done smart things or stupid things. So I have a gut feel ahead of time. If I'm not sure and can't come to a gut feel, then I schedule a 20-minute or a paid 45-minute session.
Mm-hmm.
If I like what I see, then I'll give them, you know, 45 minutes for free. And, you know, we'll figure out to work together. But I like to, you know, I don't do all of the discovery during that session.
Yep.
I just get to a couple of really key points, you know, and those key points have to cut through the crap and get to what it is they really need. And if I can do that in 45 minutes, then, you know, we should work together.
Yep.
And if I can't, then we shouldn't. I mean, I had one guy that I really understood his business pretty well because I worked with other people like him. And about 20 minutes into it, I kept proposing that, you know, it sounds like you feel this. And he would just kind of like mumble, you know. And then at one point he said, you know, I'm old, I'm tired, I hate my work. And he said, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I need a new website, but I just want to, like, you know, bide my time until I can retire in 5 years. And I said, well, good luck with that.
You bring up a really good point, and I think that's something that I think maybe that is a little bit of that thing that we're sort of making presumptions on here. And I think, you know, maybe that's something that is in the back of your mind too, Nick. They're sort of talking about pre-qualification. And so I know that, say, someone like myself, you, Nick, I'm pretty sure Leanne has a pretty tight pre-qualification sort of stuff with, no? But I mean, Sonia definitely.
Mine sucks. I need help.
Well, that's something we can talk about, but I think that's a really valid point, right? Like, and you just sort of dropped that like quite small, Sonia, but pre-qualification is so important with, you know, allowing yourself to spend that time and work out whether or not you're going to, you know, listen to these people, or sort of like how quickly you can jump into stuff. Like if you're getting people really early and they're really unqualified, you've kind of got to make sure that they're even legit first, and even if it's worth talking to them. And if you can kind of get some of those things out of the way, and that this person is likely to have a business that needs a real solution, then, and that they're actually interested, then it makes it easier to have a proper conversation with them, and invest some of that time. So I think that's kind of really important. Does anyone want to sort of talk about what they do as far as pre-qualification? So you kind of mentioned,
yeah. I'd love to hear more from Leanne. I mean, Leanne, you just said your pre-qualification sucks. Can you elaborate on what that means?
I don't have much for pre-qualifications. Like I'm kind of trying to do just an initial call with them just to see, price and everything. But then I try to figure out how I can then turn that into like a discovery session. It's like, okay, we had a little call now. Hey, give me some money and let's talk into this some more. And I haven't figured it out.
Can I ask Leanne, what do you do before you get on that call?
Not much.
I
might check out their existing website if they have an existing website. I do like working mostly with people who do have something that we can improve upon. I don't particularly like doing sites from scratch, just because they don't understand everything that goes into a website. So I find, people who already have an existing site, they kind of understand the value of it and what it can do for them. So yeah, I'm just, yeah.
Have you ever looked at their social media
not
activity?
much.
Like,
no.
I like to look at LinkedIn. For me, if somebody's on LinkedIn and has a good profile, that tells me a lot.
Okay.
If I look at their social media profile on Facebook and it says no education, no work, no nothing, no links to a website, then I think this is probably not a good sign, And likewise,
no, the people here don't use LinkedIn that much. Thunder Bay is like where I live.
Where are you?
Northwestern Ontario.
We should send them a memo.
We're slowly catching up. They're picking up Twitter now.
Well, and I would also say, I mean, are you limiting all of your clients to 25 miles from your house?
Oh God, if I did that, I'd get nobody.
Well, I mean,
my next town is an hour away. So 100 kilometers. I mean, primarily my clients are local. I do have some in other areas of Canada, but not a lot. I would kind of like to branch out that way more. I just haven't figured it out yet.
What are your niches?
I'm still figuring all that out.
What do you like to do?
I like working with the local service-based clients. Those kind of are the ones that I mostly work with. I hate e-commerce, and I keep ending up with e-commerce clients because of this stupid pandemic.
Yeah.
E-commerce.
Yeah, I don't love it. You're not alone there.
No, I've never liked e-commerce, but I mean, I've also been doing this for a long ass time, and I'm kind of bored with a lot of it. And so I have been trying to figure out myself what I want to work on, and I'm freaking clueless. I don't know what I want to work on anymore.
What was the last thing you did that was fun?
I don't even remember.
What was the last client that delighted you?
Probably the interior decorator. She was a fun one to work on. That was a couple years ago.
Okay.
What about that was good?
She didn't try to micromanage me, which was really nice. I dealt with a client this summer who micromanaged, and she was a pain in the butt. And she was just like open to all of my suggestions and everything. So I kind of like that stuff with it. But I'm really struggling with where I want to even focus my business anymore. I feel like I've been doing this too damn long. I'm bored.
That's a whole nother topic.
Can I do a quick, I just want to like, just make sure I'm understanding a couple of things. I just want to recap, right? So, Leanne, we started by you mentioning that you're struggling a bit with the pre-qualification process. You don't really have one. Then based on Sonia's questions, it's kind of come out that you're not really sure what you want to focus on. You're kind of feeling a little bit kind of
lost.
I'm
lost. Yeah.
Got you. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I do have some views, like I'll share if you guys are interested. Just some, because I've gone through this sort of stuff, right? Like this is like literally Corey and I were talking like last week. Was it last week when I was waiting to get a haircut?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I spoke for like an hour and a half and I missed my haircut.
Yep.
Cool. So it does get like that. I've been through that, and the challenge is, it's going to sound so bad, but often I feel like I'm working with people who don't deserve my help. And that sounds so arrogant, but that's how I kind of feel sometimes. And that's just a couple of different things factor into that. It's like a general lack of marketing energy and effort. You know, you're appealing to people who aren't quite the right fit, but because you need to eat, you need to work with them, because you can't, if you say no to every single person is a wrong fit and you're not marketing to the right fit, you're going to go broke and die. Like, it's not good. So there are a couple of things that you can do that I'm kind of working on now myself to try to fix this. In your case, potentially you may want to go back a step and review like your actual process of selling first, and get that like maybe a little bit like, I guess, sharper. So like one of the things I do is every single person that inquires, assuming they don't come across like an immediate piece of shit, I'll do a triage call. So it's a concept I got from Taki Moore, who's a business coach guy who teaches business coaches how to business coach. You know, one of those, like, sounds very spammy, you know, 7-figure, blah, blah, blah. But hey, he's got some really good systems. And so one of them is the triage call. And it's basically when someone inquires, you go through like a 10 to 15 minute call. You keep it really sharp on the 10 to 15 minute thing. And it's basically you judging whether you want to take him to the next step. And so you ask the questions that kind of matter to you. He's got a framework to go through it. You know, it's kind of like, well, why are we talking? What made you call me? Why now? You know, what's going on? What's the problem? Where do you want to be? You know, what do you feel's in the way? Stuff like that. And then you kind of push them to the next step of actually having a proper sales conversation. So you do something like that. For me, I kind of judge, like, do these people tick a few boxes? Like you, I don't like working with someone who doesn't have a website, but I do like building new websites. I don't like trying to fix old stuff, because I'm like, no, I'm not good enough as a developer to go and fix someone's existing website. Yeah, no, I'm really bad at that. No, let me build it new, please. New car smell, thank you. So it's finding a couple of those qualifiers and going, okay, cool, like this person's worth talking to. If they come across as an immediate piece of shit, that's when I send them to a web form, because I'm like, I don't care and I don't want to speak to them. So they do the web form. And if they happen to actually fill it out and do well in it, then I will actually give them the next, like, I'll progress into a sales call, because they prove me wrong. They prove my instinct wrong, which is, I can tell you now, it's happened, I think, once or twice, maybe. And even then, they never end up becoming clients anyway. It was very rare for someone to go from web form. For me, when I filtered them to a web form, very rare to become a client. So do it like a little triage, and then assuming that they're ticking the boxes there and they're not like terrible, I'll then book them into a sales call. And in my sales call, basically my job is to find the problem that they're facing and get them to like open up about the problem they're facing. And if I can't do that in about 20 to 30 minutes, then it's very clear that this sales call isn't going to go where I want it to go. And that's when, instead of pushing them to, like, instead of recommending that a solution like of a website or whatever it is that they're speaking to me about, my recommendation is usually about something to give them more clarity, which is where I'm recommending like a second chat, whether that's a discovery session, whether it's them going to a business coach, which I've done before. And the dude came back He wanted just a basic website. He came back for a $30,000 like mini app thing that should have been probably 50,000. But my ex-business partner quoted it. So yeah, you know, he was the app guy. So, but that's basically it, right? It's like, if I have to make a recommendation. My job isn't to sell a website. My job is to figure out how to solve their problems. And if the problem isn't clear, it means their problem is that they don't know the problem. And so that's what I need to recommend, is figuring out how to solve the problem. Then once we know the problem, then I can make a recommendation of a solution to that problem. So that's kind of what like I'll do. And, you know, there's people have different processes, and there's no like right or wrong answer there. And then once you kind of know that you can handle inquiries in a way that you don't feel dead and empty inside, then you can start trying to like grow the market side of things and going, okay, who do I actually want to appeal to? So, you know, it's like a lot of times it's like there are people that would have been great if there was an extra zero at the end of that price. Like, it's like, holy crap. Like if that client paid double, they would have been amazing. And then there's clients who, even with double, they're not going to be amazing. And so you start kind of ruling out who you just don't want to work with, no matter the money. And yeah, if you start sort of getting that in, you can start narrowing down a little bit. You know, you find the people who do make you feel strong and powerful and good. You know, for me, it's like when I can make an impact. And I realized like probably about a year ago, when I deliver a site and I can like, and they're doing marketing and they're spending in marketing, and then they see this dramatic uptick in results. Like when they say the day after going live, like, holy crap, my phone didn't stop ringing today. And then I know I've done a better job and I feel really good about myself, you know. And then I've got like one who just continues to send me his analytics because he just can't believe like how much better the results are. You know, his conversion rate he thought it was great at like 10%, and it's up at 25% now on his homepage. And he's just like, holy crap, this is amazing. And we're making so much more money. And now we've, you know, it was like halfway through February, and he's like, man, we smashed last February, which was a really good month for us. We've gotten that within like in less than 2 weeks, like before Valentine's Day. What the hell? This is amazing. And so, you know, they're growing from like, it was like a $600,000 a year business to like a 1 point something. And that's like huge. And that makes me feel really, really good, especially when they're smaller businesses and not like some rich board type organization. You know, I'm slowly coming down to like who it is that I tend to work with the best. A lot of it is a degree of attitude and also where they are in business. And I still wouldn't class myself as having a niche, because I don't. And this is something Corey and I have spoken about as well. And yeah.
Something I was going to say about share, a niche. I'm going to do a quick screen share if this works. Let's see. Are you guys seeing anything yet? Yeah. Cool. So there was two things I wanted to say initially. Around the pre-qualification, there's almost like two things that happen, right? I think you could sort of say like there's hard pre-qualification and soft pre-qualification, or active and passive, if that works better for you. And one of them is, you know, like that sort of passive or soft pre-qualification can just sort of start with the content that you have. You know, some of that stuff like people putting in budgets in there when they get in contact with you, you know, those sorts of things are, I guess, kind of yeah, like there's no work involved in those things. And then there's sort of the stuff where, you know, you make people work for them. And so you can really start with really sort of soft stuff, like talking about your pricing sort of certainly helps, talking about the types of people you work with, and even stuff like having a niche. So if you have a niche, that's really important. And that's why I've sort of pulled this up. This was from a presentation that I did. And I sort of think that with niching, I'll sort of go back with a few things. With niching, sort of people often see that niching is one of these sorts of opposites, you know, where you've got a horizontal niche, which is by skill or service, or then you've got a vertical niche, which is by industry or service offering. But really you can combine these things so that they're, you know, like a diagonal niche. So you can kind of, you know, combine a service offering with the sort of type of you know, industry, for example. But you can also dig into psychographics, so like try and work out what it is that makes someone tick, you know. And so that might be and this is, I think me and Nick, we were talking about this sort of stuff. Like it might be, you might in the past know that working with tradies, there's a good part about that. Like they don't waste your time. They say yes really quick, but they don't have enough money. So maybe what you need to do is look for a type of tradie that has a business at a certain scale. So maybe they've got like a communications team, or they've got project management, or project managers, and you're not really dealing with the business owner so much. As an example. So it's a bit like working with councils. It's very often that not very often you're going to work with the mayor or the person that runs the local council, but what you're going to be doing is running with a communications manager or something. So that's a type of person or a type of business by the type of person that they are. Anyway, so this thing here is looking at sort of niches, and there's, I guess, when you're trying to say, when someone feels lost, and there's sort of two ways I think you can look at this. And one is just looking at yourself. So it's like the things that you enjoy doing, the things that you're really good at doing, and the things that others need. And if you sort of can see, it's a classic Venn diagram here, but if you just sort of focus on the things that you enjoy doing and the things that you're good at doing, that's great, but there's potentially you're not going to earn any money. If you sort of go for the opposite, which is what you're good at doing and what others need, then if you're not great at it, that no one's going to hire you to do it. And then if you do the ones that I guess others need, but you're great at, but you don't enjoy, then you're going to just constantly be burnt out or hating it. So if you can kind of get all of those three in one place. And then the flip side of this, which is very much the same, but it's sort of focusing on clients rather than your own needs, is to look at like the clients that you love, the clients that you can help, and the clients that you pay well. It's exactly the same problems with exactly the same results. But you can sort of start with that if you're really, really, really lost, just to sort of think, well, what can I do? How can I find a niche? So I think it's important to know, that it doesn't need to be that a niche needs to be, I work with land developers, I work with, the healthcare industry or whatever. It can be, I work with people that believe these certain things or are in this position in their business. That's all I wanted to add. I'll stop the screen share and try and get back. But is that helpful at all?
Yeah. Sorry, thunder happened like right as you finished that.
Oh.
It's just like rumble of thunder. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. I mean, right. Like, I have really bad imposter syndrome. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for a long ass time, but I don't always know what I don't feel like I'm good at anything. And I'm sure I am if I'm still in business.
Oh, we know you
years
are.
Later. But I don't see it.
Yep.
So that's also what's holding me back with a lot of things.
You know what's amazing about imposter syndrome? When you do start putting yourself out there, when you start putting yourself out there, it feels even worse if you start getting recognition, and you're like, what the hell, man? And then you feel like this can't be right, because I'm meeting the people who are on stage and who are talking about this stuff, and you talk to them and you're like, they're just like me, and they have the same fears and the same whatever. I'm living in constant fear that someone's going to turn around and show everyone that this guy has no fucking idea what he's doing. Like, I'm waiting for the day. I am freaking the hell out because it's like I'll do a comment on something and everyone's like, oh, that's great. And it's like, what is it? Like, really? Are you sure? It's like, didn't feel that great. It was just like an idea that I had that I just chucked, on here. And it's like, people are telling me that it's good. It's like, is it? Like, I'm really, really like freaking out that, everyone's going to go, this guy has no idea. I'm not a great designer, and I've never thought I'm a great designer. And like Corey knows, when I talk to him, I'm like, no, I'm really not a great designer. But then I see other people's work and I'm like, but I'm better than that, and so it's like, you know what, you're rarely as bad as you think you are. Like, I'm looking at your site now and it's great. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, I think you don't need to feel, it doesn't matter if it's boring. Like, that's a big thing. Like, I mean, it's like, it's about being able to get results for people. And so, like, it's surprising, actually. One of the sites that has like one of the most amazing results I've gotten for someone is a site that I don't really like the design very much. And I wasn't happy with it, but it hit a point when I was like, you know what, I'm not going to try to argue with the clients and, you know, and get my views over the line. I just can't be bothered. And we did it anyway, and it still got good results. And could it be better? Probably. But hey, it's still amazing results. And hey, you know, like, all right, and it's not even that great. We usually tend to judge ourselves the hardest out of everyone because we know what we're thinking, but we don't know what that person on stage is thinking. We don't know that, like, you know, hey, before Nick went on that live call, he had to go to the toilet like 3 times with nerves, and was like sweating like crazy, and had like a couple of alcoholic beverages to settle the nerves beforehand. And, you know, at the end of the call, finished an alcoholic beverage at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yay. You know, like, you don't see these things, like you see what people present. And so the fear is real and it's there for everyone. It's what keeps you kind of honest, I guess. Like, you know, as long as I feel like, you know, I'm lucky to get places, you know, it's good to be confident about your skills, but also as long as I feel like, as long as I'm feeling like, okay, cool, like this is amazing, but what the hell, like I don't think I know what I'm talking about. I think that I'm kind of okay, like I'm not letting my ego grow too much. I think the point where I sit there and go, yeah, I deserve this and I'm great, like is when I no longer deserve anything and I'm no longer great.
Yeah, Imposter Syndrome. Imposter
Yeah.
Syndrome came up on the last call. I can't get my camera to work now that I tried to screen share.
Well, at least your audio works.
Yeah, classic Corey. But we talked about Imposter Syndrome last time too, and it really, for me, is if someone doesn't have that, doesn't have any form of Imposter Syndrome, I don't trust them, because it's who doesn't have that? So yeah, it's kind of.
Well, I personally think it's a scale. And on one end, we have extreme imposter syndrome. And on the other end, we have something called Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah.
And I would trust somebody with imposter syndrome long before somebody with Dunning-Kruger.
100%.
So, I mean, if you do have imposter syndrome, count your blessings, because you're on the right end of the scale.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
So, you know,
not you, but my actual mom.
Yeah, I mean that's a win. And the other thing is, when I interact with a client or a colleague, if I'm starting to feel imposter syndrome, what I do is jump back and start asking questions.
Yep.
And that kind of makes it disappear a little bit, because they're the ones that are sticking themselves out first. And it makes it easier.
Struggle with asking questions and knowing the questions to ask.
Well,
I'm one of those people where I take in all the information and it percolates around in my head, and then I'll come up with stuff like the next day. But to jump on things like right off the top of my head, I'm like, no, I need this to percolate in my head for a bit and drink coffee.
That is one of the reasons why I said, do you look at somebody's, say, maybe LinkedIn profile or Facebook, or some people even still have, when you Google them, still have MySpace showing up.
I thought that went down.
Pardon me?
I don't know. MySpace was gone.
I just found yours.
I don't have MySpace.
Well, it came up. It might be it might be somebody else with the same name.
I don't think I have a MySpace account.
I know, but I'm just being silly.
No, I'm curious.
The point is, if I look at somebody's LinkedIn profile and their Facebook profile, it's almost impossible for a couple of questions not to pop in my head, you know?
I kind of want to find a Leanna emo version of MySpace page. That would be.
Oh dear God! I have like my original website from 1996 with like flashing little GIFs.
Oh, beautiful!
And, oh my God, it's beautiful.
But I think
I was like, oh God.
So I think with that too, like if that's something you struggle with, and we kind of sort of touched a little bit on this last time, that for me, with doing calls, I used to have like a pre-written questions that I would ask. And that can really help. I can just have an Asana, list open, and I just tick them off. And now it's not a big deal. I just know what I'm talking. I feel confident enough to talk through it.
I don't have a list, and
so that would be beneficial. And if you combined what Sonia's saying with like doing a bit of research, then you could customize those questions before the call.
Yeah, but I like that idea of like the triage call that Nick had suggested, just off of like that initial one, just to see, do I even want to work with these people or not? Because I mean, I'm lucky that, I've been in business, like my company itself has been in Thunder Bay since 96. So it's well
24
known.
years.
Yeah. I've been there since 97 and I bought it in 2004. I'm a lifer. I started as a high school co-op and I never left.
Yeah, wow. That's cool though.
It is actually kind of neat. Yeah. But
I have an old thing I used to do for like project brief that I used to fill out with people. Like I used to fill out while I was asking them questions, and I would just literally use it to guide me through some initial stuff on the sales call. It doesn't cover any education aspects of it or anything like that. It's literally like, it's like as if you were getting a brief. But it's, when in doubt, it's actually not a bad place to go, because I do focus a lot on stuff around the marketing. So who's the target market? What are your current promotional activities? What are your objectives? Like, who's the competitors? Like, starting, like, it starts from who they are, what they do, who the competitors are, who their target is, what they're doing to promote themselves, what their objectives are. I do a proposed site structure usually, like, this is what I'm thinking we need. I get any design notes, like anything that they like or don't like, and then any notes. And this was like actually served me pretty well. I would go through that and then I would explain, like, do all the education stuff. Now it's a lot more fluid with the conversation. I'm, very different. No, not different, but I'm further along in my journey. But when I first started, I just tracked it down. It's like pretty cool. It's funny when you can find old docs.
Share it?
Yeah, let me put it into a drive.
I feel like I have client website files back from pre-2000. Why I still have them, I don't know, but I classify myself as a digital hoarder. I need to get rid of some of it. Also, Sonia did find me on MySpace. I had no idea I had a MySpace account.
Oh, wow.
That is me. There's nothing on there other than my name.
You haven't ranked your friends in order of your favorites. You have to do that back in those days.
Apparently, I have 2 connections and 2 people connected to me. Both high school friends of mine.
Let me share this. Make it public. Change.
Well, but I think my point was that, it's easy to set up a couple of tools and or go to websites that will tell you a little bit about it. And I'm actually going to share a secret that I use when I'm checking with a client. If I have their email address, I actually go to Have I Been Pawned? Have you seen that website?
Oh, yes.
And I punch it in there. And if I find out that they have, been involved in tons of breaches, then I think that's a negative, because, this client doesn't understand the whole online world very well. I mean, I found one the other day that had been in like 23 breaches, and they were talking about a website. And I thought, I'm too busy, I'm just too busy.
Yeah.
My problem is I just want to help everybody because I have the knowledge and I could do it, but they can't always pay me, but I still want to help them.
Do you know about Adam Grant's Give and Take, Leanne?
No.
Okay, so Adam Grant wrote a book called Give and Take, and he analyzes people like you and me and all of us. And he analyzes their patterns of giving and taking. And there's some people that are matchers. That is, if you do something for them, they feel like they have to do something for you. I have a neighbor, twice I saved his life, and every time he felt like he had to do something for me, and in order to match. So he brought me a plate of chicken barbecue, you know. I mean, the thing is, it wasn't an equity match, but he just felt like he had to return the favor. So, but in Give and Take, Adam talks about this guy that he found, who's coincidentally also named Adam Rivkin, who is connected with everybody on the planet. I mean, he was connected with Nelson Mandela. Barack Obama would have taken his call, you know, literally. And he tried to find out this guy's secret. And Adam Grant found out that this guy's secret was that he would do a favor for anybody. But here's the catch: 5 minutes.
I think I heard something about that.
Yeah.
So when I read this book,
yeah.
Well, I've mentioned it a couple of times in our forums on the admin bar. But I learned when I read this book that my family, my mother and her mother, and most of the women in my family and some of the men are givers, and we give way too much. If somebody called me and asked for a favor, I would spend sometimes half an hour on the phone with them. And that was not good.
I helped someone with front page on Thursday.
So, now when that happens, I set a timer and I say, you know, I'll give you 5 minutes, you know, and that's it. And that does a couple of things. First of all, I don't feel like I have given too much. The second thing is it always leaves them wanting. If I do a 5-minute favor for somebody and they're continuing to ask questions and I say, sorry, gotta go, then they want me, you know. I mean, they literally want me. And I have made more sales doing 5-minute favors. And it's important here to understand, I don't expect any reciprocation. And the favor does not have to be related to my business. I mean, I literally have shared seeds with somebody in my neighborhood and landed a website deal. I gave them some pepper seeds, you know, hot peppers. And they remembered that. And a year later, they wanted a website. So, you know, your urge to give is not bad, but your urge to give too much.
I give too much.
Might be like mine.
I know it.
It's like me. I mean, that was my big problem. And so now I have a timer here, and I literally, if you call me and ask for a favor, I will probably set a timer, and, you know, especially if I don't know you. 5 minutes, that's it.
Very good. Well, I've got loads of stuff going through my mind after this call. But how's everyone feeling about that? Has anyone got any sort of last final thoughts that we want to sort of cover, or?
I just have one quick. Yes. I'm curious to see what you guys do in this situation. Do you accept phone calls coming through and just chat to a client? So say a client out of the blue calls you and is curious about your website. Do you sit and quickly take time then to chat with them and go through your process, or get their email to send through a proposal? Or do you say, hey, great, really interested, let's set up a time and do the triage call or discovery? Or how do you guys go from inquiry if they call you? Or do you not even accept the call, let it go to message bank, and then check them out first and then call them back? Like, I'm really curious to see. So you're talking proposal, how everyone deals with incoming calls.
You're talking about a prospect, right? Like not an existing client.
Yeah. So a new inquiry, you haven't dealt with them before. I've been told a few times, don't answer the phone. I'm just curious.
It rings and I want to answer it.
I know. I'm terrible at this. And then I spend 45 minutes talking with somebody. I really need to get better at this side of things. So I'm curious, before like that part of the proposal process, at the very, very start, if you get a phone call, what do you do?
So for me, and this is a little bit similar to Sonia, with that limitation around time. If I genuinely can't answer the phone, I'm not going to answer the phone. If I do answer the phone, I would just say to someone that I'm busy and that I'm happy to chat for 5 minutes and work out what we need to do next. I like to do that because I think being responsive to someone is really important, but also them knowing that I've got some stuff that I need to do, that I'm busy, is also important. And it also gives me that chance to get enough information about them and not really dig into the project. Like I'm just trying to get, a little bit of almost some of that stuff that Sonia was saying. You might go away and, do a LinkedIn search and stuff. If I can find out a little bit about who they are and then maybe continue that. And then, say what I'll do is I'll reach out and I'll work out another time when we can, schedule a call. So I'm just trying to keep this under 5 minutes. If it's out of the blue, if someone's got in touch with me another way, like a online inquiry or a referral or something like that, then I'm sort of skipping that part and going straight into that proper, pre-sales call. So it's a little bit of a combination of both. That's me anyway. Anyone else?
Yeah, my process is similar. I generally try to limit incoming cold calls to 5 minutes, like you said. But I have to say, the second I pick up the phone, I am using my online tools to try to find out what I can. If I can find it out very quickly, then I may decide to continue the conversation if there's good reason. Like the minute you call me, I have your phone number, right?
Yeah.
And I can just, left click on that and jump into one of my search tools and find out who you are, where you live, what businesses you've been involved in. I hate to say this, but how old you are. If you're 17, I might not want to have a long conversation with you. And you actually can check out a lot of social media if you have the phone number.
Yeah.
And if I can't find something out in really rapidly, then I will gather a little information like your email address, if you have a site, and then I can further use those. So at a minimum, the 5 minutes gathers information to kind of make a decision. And at least half the time, I will end up telling them, that's not a good fit. So I will try to find a colleague that I can send them to. And my goal this year, I'm putting this out everywhere, so you guys have to hold me to it, right? But my goal this year is to turn away 3/4 of the incoming business, but to turn it away in a good manner for them. I want to take 3/4 of the business that comes to me and give it to colleagues,
Yep.
And that's a win-win for everybody, because, I have colleagues that are terrible at, connecting with people. And I want to be able to give away business. I literally want to keep only the cream of the crop. I mean, I'm in some sense, I'm kind of spoiled now because, having worked in Silicon Valley for 20 years and set aside a bit, and I actually own my home outright. So, I don't have to make a mortgage payment. I don't have to worry about food on the table. I could say no to everybody this year and I'd still be okay at the end of the year. So, I can be a little arrogant this year.
So that reminded me of a point that sort of goes back to something Leanne was saying initially about like wanting to help everyone. I think it's just sort of struck me, and I'm aware of this, and it's just important to, other people would be aware of it, but it's important to sort of just flag that helping someone doesn't mean you have to do the stuff. Like if someone rings you up and it's clear that they have a problem and you're not the person that should be solving it, if you can find the person for them and not need to spend more than 5 minutes, like they will remember that you helped them. So if in that situation, I'm trying to make it clear what it is that if someone might ring up and they say, can you come and do photographs of this? It's like, well, no, I don't do photography. This is what I do. I educate them on what I do. And then I'm trying to help them find that person. Oh, look, I've got some contacts. Do you want me to email them to you? And then I'm doing that. So A, I've helped that person, and B, they have an idea of who I am in case they ever want that other service. So I just wanted to add that thing really quickly. What were we talking about? Oh, with the initial call. What about you guys? Nick, did you have a...
Yeah. Okay. So look, when you get an inbound call, like answering is really good if you can, because it does, like Corey said, it shows responsiveness. I've won work before by being responsive to calls. These days, though, I tend not to pick up my phone that much because I find it an interruption to my day. I'll pick it up if they're calling at a convenient time. Anytime a call comes in and it's someone saying, hey, I called because blah, blah, blah. Like I need to find out like, a couple of things to judge whether I take it further. So I need to find out why they're calling me. Like, did someone give them my number? Like, how'd they find me? And then what do they actually want? Are they calling me because of something that I can actually help with or not? And if I find out those things and it's like, yeah, cool, this is worth talking further about, then I'll tell them that I don't really have, I need to give them some time to talk about things. Basically, I do like a micro triage, like on an inbound. So again, like you want to keep it to within 5 minutes, but you need to just have a couple of tactics to get you off the call. And so, my one is like, look, I need to kind of ask you a bunch of questions to figure out like if I can even help you or not. It sounds like I could, but I have a lot of questions to run through. Can we schedule a time? Because I don't have the time right now to give you, like, I can't give you the respect you need. I can't give you the time you need. Can we book another time? So yeah, you kind of come up with ways to jump off that call by, little mini scripts or whatever. And you use that as your method. So you find out what you need to progress with any time you have a client interaction. You figure out what you need to get out of it. And then what the quickest and most efficient way to get that. And then you move forward, either move forward into like another call, move forward into a meeting, or move forward into tell them to get the hell away from you, in a nice way.
My easy bluff, like, is that I've got a Zoom that I've got a call that I need to jump on. That's as soon as someone calls you.
I'm always waiting for an online meeting to start when I answer the phone.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if they start yapping on, it's like, oh, look, I'm really sorry, this call's about to start. Can I call you back? What's your best contact number?
Yeah.
And so you just figure out what you need. I need to know that how they find me, because you know what, like I'm not like some SEO expert where I'm showing up for every possible search term. And for people to call me, like my phone number isn't on my website. So if they call my phone, I have a phone number on there which redirects, but I know when it's one of those because it gives me a little message before when I answer, it plays a message and then it picks up. Yeah, it's pretty cool. 1-300 redirection for Laura.
I have a landline.
Yeah, oh no. I have no landline in my house. We don't do landlines anymore.
This is the only landline in the house, but I've had the business number for so long.
Yeah,
it was predated cell phones.
No, you can't get rid of that. So
I don't want people calling my cell.
If people call, I don't really give out. Like my mobile is to people who I meet. So if someone calls me on my mobile, it's probably a referral. So I want to find out who referred them, because I'll judge based on the referral. There's some people who send referrals and I don't want to work with anyone they refer. Then there's some people that if they send a referral, I don't care who this person is, I'm going to give them so much respect and time and energy, because I don't want the referral to think that I'm mistreating the people they refer. And so I kind of judge based off that, but generally I don't have the time to give you now. And I want to give you time. Like I want to give you my time. So can we schedule something? And, if someone's going to the effort of calling me and they're not rude or whatever, the next thing's going to probably be a proper sales meeting. Once I get some basic info. If they sound like, hey, listen, I'm starting a business and I just need a website up like next week. Then if it's a referral, I'm going to send them to a website worksheet. And the website worksheet is going to specify a couple of things that are going to make them go, hang on, this isn't right for me. Or I'll tell them, look, I can't get something done within a week. I'm really sorry. But I can recommend, going on Upwork or whatever. I don't usually go to the extent of finding people to introduce them to, because like, it's more just pointing them in the right direction. And it's like, the right direction isn't me, go away over there. And, yeah, I mean, I could probably go a bit further, and I have sometimes, usually when it's a good project. Like there was one at the end of last year that was, it looked quite big. It was like for like Sydney Water and like involved with that. And it was big project. And it was just when I went, you know what, I don't want to do these big projects anymore. I've gone way over time and over budget on over my internal, like this is how long I should be spending on these. And I'd been working for like a month and a half, 2 months, like pretty much for free, big major misjudges. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm working with the people that I know I can help the most. And so I passed that on to a friend of mine. And he was saying like, he thinks it could potentially end up being a 100K project, which is amazing for him. And it's the kind of work that he likes. So when it's something that's bigger than I want to handle, then great, I'll refer it on. But if it's something smaller than I want to handle, or it's like someone who has no budget. Like, I don't want to do that to someone else. I don't want to like, hey, here you go. Here's someone who has no money and doesn't respect websites. Enjoy. Like, no. Yeah, have a process. Everything you do, it's easier when you have a process. Like, even like when you're starting out with stuff, like Leanne, you know, you don't really have a qualification process, so anything will help. Like, just find something and just start, and then you build as you get used to doing it. You know, cold calling was like that. I remember when I first had to start doing cold calling, it was like years ago, and it was like horrible. And I hated it, but I just kept adapting every single call, every couple of calls, I'd adapt the script a little bit. And then after a while, I didn't really bother with the script, but at the start, the script helped so much. And then the script that was working the most, I'd just give to the team when I was hiring people to do it instead of me. And then they'll do their thing. It was great. But it was just a system to start. Then you kind of make it your own with experience and yeah, exposure to it.
Well,
does that help, Laura?
Yeah, really helpful. Thank you. I kind of I had my own thoughts on it, and I'm getting better at my process, but that's one thing that I was in something the other day, and they basically half jokingly, but not said, never answer your phone. They're like, always let it go to messages or get email, then follow up when you have time. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know about that, because quite a few of my clients, being smaller and being local, appreciate being able to call somebody and you just taking, even if it is 15 minutes just to talk them through. I think that connection means they're more likely to make a time to call rather than if it was via email or something. Yep. And I think that's just the clients I'm working with at the moment. It's a bit different. So I was really curious to hear what everybody did, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think being responsive is really important. I'm amazed sometimes, you know, even like 2 days after someone's emailed, I'll ring them up and to schedule a call, or, you know, email them to schedule a call, and they'll be thankful just for me getting back to them. I'm like, and I've literally had people say, you're the only person that's gotten back to me. I'm like, what?
I'm the same.
Sounds like me trying to find a plumber last week. I had an appointment scheduled in. He never showed up.
Wow.
I don't understand.
I think that you can also use a couple of tools for incoming calls that help a lot. And I do think it's important to get back to people promptly, but you don't always have to get back to them the same way. For example, people are talking about landlines and cell phones. Nobody knows my cell phone number. Nobody knows my landline number, and I have both. I also make calls on the web all the time. But what people know is my Google Voice number. And if you don't know about Google Voice, check it out.
We don't have it here.
Really?
In Canada. It's not in Canada.
Not in Australia either.
No.
That was what I was
Seriously?
trying. Yeah, that's what I was trying to set up, and I ended up having to get a 1-300 number instead.
Okay, so there's a lot of other companies similar to Google Voice. As a matter of fact, I got Google Voice before it was Google Voice. It was actually, I think they were called Grand Central or something, and Google bought them literally. But there's a lot of other companies that do something similar. But what these are is they're a voice over IP, but the call is routable. So my Google Voice rings whatever phones I tell it to ring. And if I know you, it will ring my cell phone. If I don't know you, it will not ring my cell phone. It may ring my landline, but will only do that between 9 and 6. The hours of 9 and 6. After that, it will not ring my landline either. It will take a voice message. It will transcribe the voice message. It will then email or text me about that voice message. And I can literally, I've had people that called me, left a voice message, and I texted them back within seconds saying, I'm in a meeting right now, but can we talk tomorrow at 3? You know, I mean, it's incredibly powerful, and the rules are really powerful. I had one client that was a jerk. He behaved very badly.
Just one?
Well, no, this one was a really bad jerk. And my intention was to get rid of him, but I wanted to wait until the care plan was over. So I actually set his phone number. If he called, it always went to voicemail, 100%. And after a certain point, I wouldn't even call him back. I would either text him, or I would email him, or I would open a ticket for him. you know, and that was the, you know, how I controlled our interaction. But the point is, if you have an incoming phone system that can do that, it saves you a lot of time. If somebody calls me and their caller ID is blocked, they automatically go to voicemail, period.
Yep.
End of story, you know?
Yep.
My brother has his set.
Scam calls.
Yeah, my brother. Oh yeah, and it filters it filters scam calls automatically.
They've been changing it. They actually show up as local area codes now. So you think it's a legit person. I'm like, oh, you bastards.
Yeah, but Google Voice is filtering them, and some of the others like Ring Central are doing that too. So, you know, the minute somebody reports one call as a scam, then they automatically get filtered. And if you turn on, you know, spam or scam call filtering, those never ring you. They go direct to voicemail or they go to the garbage.
That messed up my dad. With the pandemic, the doctors were calling, blocking their phone numbers. So his phone wasn't ringing, so he wasn't getting his calls from the doctor.
Well, you have to set it so everybody, I mean, with mine, I set it so.
Yeah, this just came automatically on his iPhone.
Yeah,
and the doctor's office finally figured it out.
But anybody who's in my contact list automatically gets through.
Yeah.
You know?
But because the doctors are calling from an unknown number or a blocked number, it was being blocked. Like,
get a new doctor. Seriously, doctors have to be
It's really
smart.
hard to do in here. We have a major doctor shortage.
Well, with telemedicine now, you can get a doctor anywhere in the world.
True. My healthcare won't cover it. I love my healthcare.
Yeah, well, that's another topic. We're not discussing that.
No.
Between the US and Australia and Canada, I would be, you know, the sad one.
Well, awesome. I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up. We've sort of done about an hour and a half, which is pretty good. That was a lot of good stuff. So yeah, thank you very much again, Sonia and Laura, and it was great to have you on there. Leanne, Nick, it was a pain in the ass as always. And let's hopefully we get Trish on here next time, and she doesn't have an issue. All right.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. All
Absolute
right.
pleasure.
How often are you guys doing the calls?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys use the word fortnight in America. I mentioned it and someone was like, what the hell is that?
Not one way to use, but I know what it is.
Yeah, I think my answer to that was a 50-50 chance of it happening every week.
I love languages, and I'm very fluent in 3 languages. And I'm right now busy studying Mandarin and Australian.
Love it. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks very much.
Guys.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.